What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Today we are taking it to our Arc Hunter with this absolutely gnarly build, especially with this season's artifact. This allows us to spam our abilities using that Heart of Inmost light chest piece with some Arc weapons and that Thunderlord, absolutely just deleting champions, especially since we got that nice buff to Thunderclap. So we'll get right into it here. Now, for our abilities, aspects, and fragments, got our Thunder Crash for that juicy DPS in that endgame content. Now, for me, I am running our Towering Barricade. You can run either of these because we are going to be spamming our abilities, but I personally like the Towering Barricade best for that endgame content. Same with the jump, you can choose whatever you want. I personally like the Strafe. Now, for me, I went with Thunderclap because this thing got that nice juicy buff where that shock of the lightning went from 50 damage to 200. So these got a nice buff inside of PvE, and then the God Nade for PvE realm with Pulse Nades, giving us that Jolt Ionic Traces, especially with our aspects that we got. Now, first off, for our aspects right here, we have Touch of Thunder. So those pulse grenades create ionic traces periodically as it damages targets, and it increases its damage over time, absolutely making these pulse grenades so much better for the PvE realm than they even normally are. Plus, with that ionic traces, it adds to the ability spam of this build with that chest piece, so those ionic traces are just a little cherry on top. Now, this right here with Knockout adds to our Thunderclap. Critically wounding a target or breaking their shield infuses your next melee attack with Arc Energy and increases its range and damage, so that Thunderclap gets even better. Defeating targets with the melee starts health regen and makes us amplified, which amplification is super key for this build as well. You'll see in our artifact mods why that is and our fragments here. Now, for our first fragment, that Spark of Feedback, which we use to accent our Thunderclap because we're taking this as the Titan build, getting up close and personal, so taking melee damage increases our outgoing melee damage, allowing us to absolutely annihilate enemies with just a single charged up punch. Next on our list right here, we have that Spark of Ions. Defeating jolted targets creates ionic traces for us. Like I said, using those ionic traces to have that ability spam even more than normal with Heart of Inmost Light, and we're going to have them absolutely everywhere with this build. Number 3, Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage, helping us for that survivability in endgame. Plus, it helps, like I said, we're in there like swimwear, using that melee, spamming our grenade and our shield quite a bit with this build. And last but not least, super important for this, that Spark of Shock. Our Arc Grenades are going to jolt targets, which right there plays into that Spark of Ions, giving us even more of those ionic traces. Plus, Jolt is super nice for stunning those Overload champions. Plus, it is a nice little add to DPS and add clear when it chains. So definitely my favorite Arc verb that we have. So bringing it all together with that Shock is definitely super important. Now, when we move on to weapons, there's kind of 2 different variations that I was running. This is my initial one, which is in the gameplay for that dungeon, running it solo. We have the old Sterling Strand Auto Rifle with Surplus Demo. Very, very good at creating those orbs for us because of our artifact mod, as well as Demo giving us our grenade energy. Now, we do have Riptide as our backup because in our energy slot, we're going to have Forbearance, normally pairing that with Old Sterling, but the Centrifuge with the Catalyst, pairing that with Riptide, is also a very good combo because this right here allows us to have that freeze and slow, so we can stun Overload and Unstoppables. And then this season right here, this creates that nice blinding explosion. Plus, we have auto rifles as anti-barrier, hence why I'm running that Old Sterling as well. But this Forbearance, definitely my go-to. You can see level 77, absolutely love this thing with chain reaction, and its its ability to pair with this arc subclass, just wiping out room after room. And finally for me, I'm running Thunderlord most of the time. This thing is the juicer magooser right now, and just has been since they changed that little catalyst, giving us the ability to chain lightning, and it is super good for overloads and just any type of boss. And when you are running the other combo of Centrifuge and Riptide, I personally was using this Wendigo right here, little low on the level, but going in there with explosive light field prep, this thing felt absolutely nasty for that arc synergy. But like I said, in the gameplay, got that old Sterling, Forbearance, and Thunderlord. Now, when we move on to our artifact right here, we're using that anti-barrier auto rifle with authorized arc mods as well as melee mods. Now, like I said, that Technicolor siphon for the old Sterling as well as our arc weapons is going to give us those orbs of power. We use that on our helmet. Now, these mods down here, all 4 of them are super good for the arc synergy plus shock and awe. So, electric armor, stay amplified longer with our arc subclass. That's why that amplification is super important from our artifacts and those fragments. Now, we are going to use amped up as well to gain that damage resistance well amplified, playing back into this as well as our subclass and that end game survivability. On top of that, we're going to use Thunderous Retort, so that Thunder Crash is going to do a little bit more damage when we're critically wounded or while we're amplified, and we're going to be amplified forever and consistently with this build because of the subclass as well as our artifact this season, with Lightning Strikes twice, giving us our grenade back super quickly, which we're going to get already, but this makes it even faster, cranking that up to 11. Plus, we're going to have Shock and Awe, so those arc final blows, well amplified, summon a burst of lightning that damages and jolts target, so adding to the absolute insane arc synergy of this build, making that jolt happen with basically everything that we are using in our melee, grenade, forbearance, as well as that Thunderlord. So this synergy is and ability spam on this build is absolutely S tier. Now, moving on to our armor piece, we're going to have Ashes to Assets as well as Hands On, so we get that super energy very fast on grenade defeats as well as melee, and we're going to be spamming those very consistently, plus that Technicolor, like I said, for Arc and Strand Siphon, allowing us to create orbs of power with all 3 of our weapons. Next on the list, also very important for this build, we have Firepower, Momentum Transfer, as well as Grenade Kickstarter. So we're going to get Orbs of Power on those grenade defeats, as well as damaging targets with a grenade gives us our melee back, so we're able to spam that again in another fashion, allowing this to be a crazy arc ability spam, wiping out everything. Plus that Grenade Kickstarter gives us a grenade energy chunk back once we throw it, adding to that Lightning Strikes twice, while we have that armor charge, and we're getting that with Orbs of Power, plus a mod we have on our boots. Now, when we move on to the Heart of Inmost Light, this is allowing us to have that crazy ability spam with Overflowing Light. Using an ability with our grenade, melee, or barricade empowers the other 2. Empowered means the abilities have faster regen. Melee and grenades, 1, do more damage, and barricades have more hit points, so it allows us for more damage on our melee and grenades. Plus, we can stay alive a little bit longer behind that barricade, allowing us to also empower them, giving us faster regen, which just adds to that ability spam. Now, for our mods, we have Charged Up with Arc Reserves and that Harmonic Resonant to stay alive, but you can really throw on any of these. I was just going with this because of that dungeon. There is a lot of arc damage, but you can switch that off. We have Arc Reserves for our Thunderlord and Forbearance, and then that Charged Up for Armor Charge and our Grenade Kickstarter. Now, moving on to our boots, we're going to have some juicy weapon damage as well because of our double arc weapon siphon, plus that new mod from the season, Elemental Charge, which gives us the chance of getting armor charge when collecting those elemental different things. So fire sprites, ionic traces, stasis shards, void breaches, and with this build, the ionic traces are flowing like the Nile, so we are going to have armor charge up basically consistently with this as well as those orbs of power. Now, last but certainly not least, we have the class item with another new mod from this season and powerful attraction. Automatically collect nearby orbs when you activate your class ability, allowing all of those orbs that we're creating via firepower, our arc, and strand weapons. With the ability spam, we can throw down our shield, collect all of that, and we are good to go. Now, we are using double bomber as well, so like I said, we can absolutely spam that grenade, causing all those ionic traces and jolting targets, which just adds to the insane ability spam of this build, especially with those artifact mods this season. Even without those, this is a great build in itself, but this season it is cranked up to 11. Like I said, absolutely wiping out all ads in any type of content you can go through. I was using it in the new dungeon, as you can see, doing it solo, wiping out everything on its way. Obviously, for the boss fights, I had to use a sword for the second encounter, and then switched up to a linear fusion for the final encounter. But absolutely, for anything, just is a crazy S tier build with the arc synergy of this season, and just in general with Heart of Inmost Light allows you for pretty much any subclass to just spam your abilities, wipe everything out. Definitely an S tier exotic in my opinion. So hopefully y'all enjoy this type of content. I truly appreciate that support lately. Y'all have been absolutely killing it on these builds. So if you do like the content, make sure you don't miss anything, hitting that subscribe bell button, you know, coming back. We make a lot of content, guides, etc. So thank you again. I truly appreciate it. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.